The second topic I want to talk about, Madam President, gosh, I wish I'd started with this first. I hate to end on a negative note, but the second thing I want to talk about makes me want to stick my head in an oven. British Broadcasting Corporation. We've all heard of it, BBC. It's the United Kingdom's version of the Corporation for Public Broadcasting. The BBC is the United Kingdom's state-owned, state-paid-for, state broadcast corporation. I think they call it BEEB. I think that's the slang term for it, the British Broadcasting Corporation. And everybody in the United Kingdom pays for it. You know, we were paying, American people were paying a lot for the Corporation for Public Broadcasting before we stopped the subsidies. American people were paying about $500 million a year. The Corporation for Public Broadcasting, they were pikers compared to the BBC. In the United Kingdom, every citizen, whether they watch BBC or not, every citizen has to pay $230 a year. Everybody. Doesn't matter whether you watch the TV, BBC or not. You may just have nothing but streaming services. You still got to pay $230 a year to the BBC. They collect billions of dollars a year. Somewhere here in this mess, I've got the exact figure. I think it's something like $4 billion a year. Our national broadcasting programs were just pikers compared to theirs. And they've got tentacles like an octopus. I mean, the BBC is everywhere, not just in the United Kingdom. It's omnipresent. I mean, I was doing some research today. I mean, they broadcast 4 entertainment-oriented television channels. They broadcast 2 children's channels. They broadcast Parliament. They have local language channels in Scotland and Wales. They have a domestic 24-hour news channel. And these folks are everywhere. They run dozens of radio stations. They operate their own video and audio streaming services. I mean, I could go on and on and on. Why am I mentioning that? Well, the BBC is a big deal. They reach a lot of people, millions and millions of people, not just in the United Kingdom, but across the world. And it's important that they be fair. And it's important that they be balanced. And it's important that they be accurate. And they're not. And it's been a problem for a long time. 5 or 6 years ago, at the suggestion of Parliament, which was very upset with the BBC's bias, they hired a consultant, a smart gentleman, and he did a report on how to improve BBC and make it fairer. It was a huge report. Here's just part of it right here. This isn't even all of it, but this is just the summary right here. Spent hours, spent a lot of money preparing this report. He sent it to the BBC. And you know what the BBC did? Nothing. Nothing. Zero. Zilch. Nada. They just continued on doing what they always do, sucking on their teeth, publishing whatever they want. And nothing would have happened except the report issued by the consultant leaked. Somebody leaked it to a newspaper in the United Kingdom, the Telegraph. And they published it. And the whole world got to see what the BBC's own consultant had found. I'll give you a couple of examples. We all remember January 6th. President Trump gave a speech. We've all seen it. It was a long speech. It was about an hour. maybe longer. A week before the last presidential election in America, the BBC did a documentary on President Trump. And you know what they did? They took his hour-plus long speech, and they took 2 snippets from that speech. One snippet at the beginning and one snippet at the end. The excerpts that the BBC took were 50 minutes apart. So they took them totally out of context. And they spliced those 2 excerpts together to make it look like one speech. And they had the President of the United States making a direct plea for violence. The way the BBC edited the President's speech, he was telling the people at his speech to march on the Capitol and invade it. Well, that's not what his speech said. Now, reasonable people can disagree all they want to, but no reasonable person can listen to the president's speech and conclude that he told people to go out and riot and break into the Capitol. But the BBC took these 2 snippets, put it together. I defy you. Listen to it. They've pulled it down now, but it's on the internet. It sounds like the president is telling his supporters, go to the Capitol and raise fresh hell and invade it and hurt people. And then you know what they did on top of that? After they edited the president's speech, he didn't say what they said he said. They showed a clip of the Proud Boys. We all know who the Proud Boys are. Marching on the Capitol as if the Proud Boys were acting in direct response to the president's speech that the BBC edited. One problem. The footage that they aired of the Proud Boys, it didn't happen after the president's speech. It happened, the footage of the Proud Boys marching along was way before he ever gave the speech. And they packaged this junk together and ran it on television. And this consultant called them out. And the BBC ignored it. You know what else the consultant found? The consultant found that one of their news, he pointed out that one of the BBC news channels, a reporter on one of the news channels, reported this to the world. I'm going to quote this news reporter from the BBC. Trump is out there on the campaign trail saying he wants people to shoot Liz Cheney in the face. Is that the sort of thing that women react well to? This is a reporter for the BBC. The President of the United States never said that. He never said it. They just made it up. They were either lying or they need to put down the crack pipe. Another reporter for World News America, which is part of the BBC, reported, and I'll quote again, that Trump, quote, appeared to suggest Liz Cheney should face a firing squad for her stance on foreign policy. They attributed that to the president. He never said that. The consultant for the BBC sent this report to the BBC and said, what planet are you people living on? You're supposed to be a news reporter. You can't just go make quotes up. The report for the BBC, the consultant's report for the BBC also talked about BBC's coverage of the Israel-Hamas war. And the consultant pointed out that the reporting by the BBC was heavily biased in favor of Hamas. Wasn't balanced. Wasn't presenting 2 points of view. It was heavily weighted in favor of Hamas. For example, in February, the BBC produced a documentary on Gaza. And it was narrated by a young man, a 13-year-old man. What the BBC forgot to tell its audience, the 13-year-old's dad was a Hamas senior official. Balanced reporting? Gag me with a spoon. In June of that same year, you've probably read about this, Mr. President. The BBC broadcast a live music performance featuring calls for the deaths of Israeli soldiers. The consultant pointed this out to BBC. They totally ignored him. The consultant also pointed out, he said, your coverage, BBC, of transgender issues is completely biased, and it's controlled by a certain group within BBC. And that group within BBC is a group of reporters called the LGBTQ desk. They're reporters within the newsroom. They have their own what's the term I'm looking for? Their own caucus. It's called the LGBTQ caucus, these reporters. And the consultant said, look, your own reporters, the members of the LGBTQ caucus, are not reporting anything contrary about transgenderism to what you say. You're not being balanced. In fact, the United Kingdom, Great Britain, they've outlawed transgender surgery and transgender treatments for minors. BBC never bothered to mention that. Now, look, you might be thinking, Mr. President, what's the big deal? It's another country, but it's not right. We may not be brothers and sisters, but we're certainly first cousins with the United Kingdom. And BBC broadcasts worldwide. And this is simply not right. When the good people of our cousin country are having to pay $200 a year. Now, President Trump has said he's going to sue BBC. And you know what? I hope he does. I hope he does. This is disgraceful. And it's why I said that it makes me want to stick my head in an oven.